You're listening to Arcane Carolinas, an exploration of the Carolinas' folklore, legends, myths, and modern weird. Each episode, we examine the historical context of our topic and aim to preserve some of the stories that help make this part of the world such a fascinating place. Hi, and welcome to Arcane Carolinas. First off,
you're eager to go. You're like ready to rock.
I'm really excited. I'm your co-host, Charlie Mushaw.
I'm your other co-host, multi-award-winning novelist, Michael G. Williams.
And we're joined today by a very special guest, which is the reason why I'm just like really excited. Just came in off the road. Kevin from the Arcane Destinations Delaware episode.
Hi, everybody.
So Kevin came into town just to visit. He has no idea what I'm going to talk about. Michael has no idea what I'm going to talk about. So this is just another day in my life where nobody has any idea what I'm talking about. Except it all makes sense to me.
Sure. I believe you.
Right. So it's a day that ends in Y in the life of Charlie Mushaw. But yeah, so I picked a special one today. It's kind of short. There's not a ton here, and we'll get into why that is, which makes it kind of special. But it has a direct tie to you, Kevin, sort of like in a degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of way. Like we can string this back to Kevin.
Okay.
2021 or 2020. When did we do the postcard thing? Was that 2021? Where people mailed us postcards and we read them on the Halloween special?
I think that was 2021 because we did that in your garage at your old house.
Yeah.
And it was far enough into things that we were actually like able to hang out again.
Yes. So we'll go 2021. So I owe someone an apology, specifically your sister.
A good place to be.
So she sent us a postcard and it said, talk about Poogan's Porch. And I just kind of laughed and was like, ha, Poogan's Porch. Because something that Kevin will vouch for is that I've known Kevin and his sister for a very long time. And something in that circle of friends, we are capable of being serious and having meaningful conversation. But the overwhelming majority of communication is done through humor or teasing or cracking jokes or like, hey, here's something funny and just trying to make other people laugh.
Oh, sure.
Humor is the primary language of that circle. Would you say that's accurate?
Taking something serious and making it non-serious instead of just listening first is a good way to put it. Yeah.
So knowing who it came from, I was like, ha, Poogan's Porch. She's trying to send me down off on a snipe hunt.
Yeah.
We have this thing where I receive this postcard. I know who it's from. It has a very silly sounding name. And I'm like, this is a snipe hunt. I thought her and her dude, Mike, hi, Mike, were like, let's mess with Charlie. That's initially what I thought. That's not true. Poogan's Porch is a real place.
You didn't so much as Google it.
No, I just assumed they were giving me a hard way to go for a laugh.
Okay.
Because that's me.
I actually think that this explains or speaks to a really basic component of our dynamic in the show, which is that I would have read that and immediately started looking for it. And you read that and were like, nope.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that just speaks to the fact that I'm like more readily the believer.
Tell me more about Poogan and his porch. So this takes us back to Charleston, South Carolina, which is an area we already explored in the Infernal Vatican episode. So I will not retread the history of Charleston, South Carolina.
Sure.
And I won't cover a local business because Poogan's Porch is a local business.
Oh, okay.
So like I said, like I'm just blasting right ahead through this episode, right? It's like we've already done the history. I'm about to plug a local business for 20 minutes.
Fair enough.
So Poogan's Porch is the name of a restaurant.
Is this Poogan with a B as in boy or Poogan with a P as in purple?
Purple.
Okay.
Poogan.
Okay, so Poogan's Porch.
Yep. It's alliterative.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. You can see immediately why you wouldn't think to take it seriously based on the name alone.
Yeah, I probably now I'm kind of reconsidering whether I would have immediately looked into it.
It just felt like a joke, but it's not. It's a real restaurant. It's located at 72 Queen Street in Charleston, South Carolina, in an old Grand Victorian home. It was built in the late 1800s with conflicting sources on the actual date. I'll get into that. The neighborhood in which it was built was predominantly residential until around the 1970s, at which point it had like sort of turned the corner through, I don't know if you want to call it gentrification. It was more like restructuring. Like it wasn't that it became too expensive. It was that they tore the houses down and started building commercial businesses.
Urban development.
Yeah, there you go. Words. You have them. So this house remained, though. And there are two versions as to who Poogan was, the namesake. The first is that when the house was purchased to be converted to a restaurant, the previous owners just left their dog there.
What?
Yeah. This little white dog named Poogan left behind for who knows why.
Because those people are jerks. That's why.
So that's one version.
Okay.
The new proprietors in this version, baffled as to why anybody would leave this dog behind, not only kept the dog, but named their entire business after the dog.
Good. And I hope they sent sales flyers to the people who'd left him.
The other variation on who Poogan was, we'll get into the is part in a little bit, is that it was just a neighborhood dog, like a neighborhood stray that would wander from porch to porch.
Okay.
During the construction process of gutting the old house and refitting it to be a restaurant, workers would throw scraps to the dog every day at lunch, and the dog just kept coming around and it would sit on the porch. So during the remodel, they just laughed and were like, we should just name it Poogan's Porch because apparently the dog owns the place more than we do.
I like that. I like that version a lot.
Yeah. That to me feels pretty realistic, more realistic than somebody leaving a dog. But here's the thing. Poogan died in 1979.
Okay.
And was buried on the site.
Oh,
like in the little garden area. And then visitors to the restaurant began reporting feeling something brushing under their feet.
It's a ghost pupper.
Yeah. And some people claim to have even caught shadowy glimpses of a dog in the foyer.
Oh, I love this.
So Poogan's Porch is a restaurant named after a dog that's buried on the site, haunted by the ghost dog.
I love it. I've never been to Charleston, but if I ever go to Charleston, I know now at least one place where I will eat.
It's been there, and we'll get into how long it's been there. It's been there for a long time. It has spawned a bunch of spin-off restaurants as well. So there's like a whole series of Poogan's establishments, but Poogan's Porch is like the original.
Yeah.
At 72 Queen Street. What's interesting is that Poogan is not the only ghost believed to haunt the restaurant.
Oh.
Another is widely attributed to be the ghost of a person named Zoe Saint Amand.
Go on.
Zoe Saint Amand is not a dog. Zoe Saint Amand was a woman.
I wasn't going to make any preconceived notions there.
Yes.
What a wild dog name, though.
That would be a great dog name.
Oh, it would. That'd be a fabulous name for a dog.
So before it was Poogan's Porch, when it was just a house, going back to the early 1900s, we know that a woman named, still in the legend here, a woman named Zoe Saint Amand lived at 72 Queen Street with her sister Elizabeth. And Zoe was a local school teacher, single, kept to herself, was not out and about town. When she was seen in public, she was reported to always be wearing long black dresses and thin frame glasses.
Okay.
And it doesn't hurt that there is a photo of her in that exact outfit. I just want you to see this picture.
Yeah, that's her.
Oh, yeah. That's lovely. I love her dress.
That is supposed to be Zoe and her sister, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was also kind of a homebody, and Zoe and Elizabeth were very close. They didn't go out. They both kind of stayed cooped up in the house, kind of Grey Gardens-y vibes a little bit.
Yeah, I think that for the benefit of listeners, we should just describe briefly that that's a photograph of two older white women and the woman in the black dress. It's actually like a dress with a blouse and a jacket. It's a very sort of professional school teacher, conservative dress for the turn of the 20th century kind of outfit. But her sister is wearing this like floral print dress that looks a lot more 20th century.
But also with the jacket and very dressed up.
Oh, yeah, totally. They're very not formal, but definitely like
Proper.
proper. That's a perfect word for it.
They look like proper older women.
Yeah.
They look like they would not like me. I feel like I've been scolded by each of them at some point in my life.
They look really friendly. They were smiling. I think they'd be friendly.
That's nice of you, Michael. I think I've been on the receiving end of a ruler from.
I say I'm getting Blues Brothers vibes.
So anyway, so these sisters are very close. They stick to themselves. In 1945, Elizabeth dies, and Zoe enters a depression. Mental health declines. One night, she's found out in the street hollering for her sister, and she's committed to the local Bon Secours St. Francis Hospital.
Right.
She dies shortly thereafter. She's buried down the street at Charleston's St. Lawrence Cemetery.
Okay.
So the ghost of Zoe. So we have a person that lived in the house.
Yeah.
We have some trauma, and it's believed that Zoe haunts her old home, still looking for Elizabeth.
Classic unfinished business.
And the reports of the haunting didn't begin until shortly after the remodel turned it into a restaurant.
Oh.
Yeah. Paranormal investigators that have eaten there report detecting odd signatures on their gadgets while dining.
I wonder if they got permission to do an investigation, or if they were like those people who did the videos at the Grove Park Inn, sitting there with their like EMF meter under the table, just like whoop, whoop, whoop.
That is the impression that I got from what I read. Was that it was like, hey, look at this thing that I have while they're eating there. They don't do ghost tours here, from what I could find. They're not interested in that. But staff has reported unexplained orbs of light, sounds of people knocking around upstairs when the restaurant is otherwise empty, chairs being knocked over on their own, feelings of being watched. Supposedly, apparitions of a woman in a black dress have appeared in mirrors behind people.
Ooh, I like that.
As well as having been seen moving from one room to another.
Yeah.
There's a hotel right next to it, and people that stay at the hotel have allegedly looked out their windows and seen an elderly woman in a black dress standing in a specific top floor window, even going as far as calling the cops and saying like, hey, I think there's somebody stuck in that restaurant at night trying to signal for help.
Ooh, I like this so much. I like this legend a lot.
And the owner that did the remodel, she has said that she's had experiences as well. And again, it's not in the marketing. If you go to the Poogan Sports webpage, it isn't a thing where it isn't like the Taco Shack in Raleigh.
Right.
It was like, come on down for our ghost burritos.
Yeah.
That's not their marketing thing. Their About Us is all about the dog. And it doesn't even mention the ghost of the dog. It just says like, we're named after this dog. We've been here for a long time. These are our specialties. It's not like a thing.
So applying that critical thinking, this is not something they're actively seeking to capitalize on.
Correct. So the house, let's get to some history. Let's verify some facts.
Sure.
The house, 1888, 1891, or 1973. Those are the three dates that you can find for the house having been constructed. Bit of a jump there.
Wide. Yeah.
A fire insurance index for the city. I first went to look at land use records because that's the easiest way to be like, what was there?
Yeah.
The structure was on a plot in 1888 for a fire insurance index of the city. The restaurant website, though, says 1891, not 1888, like the fire insurance index, which is strange. And then real estate websites have it listed as 1973. So it's my belief that maybe the land was zoned and approved on record by 1888 with construction wrapping or some sort of cornerstone being set in 1891. And maybe 1973 was when it was first converted on record to a commercial property prior to officially opening in 1976.
Yeah, my guess, and this is based on having spent for a series of novellas I wrote that were historical fiction set in San Francisco. I ended up having to read a lot of pre-Great Earthquake fire insurance maps because that was the only way to find out what buildings had been in places. And I would pretty much agree with that read of things. Like maybe the property had been purchased and identified as going to be residential. Maybe there had previously been some smaller structure on the same spot and it was knocked down and the place was built in 1891. And my guess is that the 1973, like you said, just points to the fact that that's when it became a restaurant and they did a lot of construction work.
It opened in 1976. The restaurant opened in 76. But I feel like if you bought it in late 73, it's not unreasonable for a remodel to take that long.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. You buy it in 73, you start doing the remodel. You just stop and think about like how extensively you have to remodel a home to turn it into a restaurant. And that's going to take some time. especially if it's not something that you can afford to do all in one go, for instance.
I also did find a permit for a kitchen expansion in 1986, and it's been sold, not really sold, really more like remortgaged multiple times by various holding groups as like different partners have come in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot on record of it. The Saint Amans were real people. They're buried at a nearby in a family plot. The whole family's there. There's mom, dad, the daughters. They're all there.
You got a picture of her.
Yeah, you can visit the graves. Poogan was a real dog. Supposedly he's buried on site. There's a little marker.
Oh.
So staff, guests of the restaurant, guests of the hotel, lots of people saying that they saw things, which is like the lowest level. Lots of people saying, like we don't want that to become the measuring stick that we use. But it is a part of it, right?
Sure.
It's what we refer to as anecdata.
Yeah. And this is one of the ones where like the history in the legend. So when I said this was kind of going to be a short one, I'm like, I'm in. I'm all in. I believe that Poogan's porch is haunted.
Oh, yeah. No, this is probably one of the most feasible ghost stories we've done. It's not a big flashy story. There's nobody trying to get rich off of it. There's nobody trying to get famous off of it. Those are the two number one reasons for a ghost story to not be true, in my opinion. There's nothing complicated about it. And there's plenty of reason to believe that either of those figures, I'll say, would have died and left behind enough of themselves to like still have something that they want. I mean, regardless of whether Poogan was left behind by horrible, horrible people who are or will be in hell. And I don't say that lightly. I mean that I kind of really now hope there is a hell so they can go to it.
It's like the opposite of all dogs go to heaven. All dog
abandoners go to hell.
All bad dog owners go to hell.
Totally. That's going to be the version I write one day. But either Poogan got abandoned or Poogan was, a neighborhood stray that was being cared for by the community. But either way, clearly there would be a lot of emotion. And anybody who doesn't think that dogs and cats have emotions have not spent time with dogs and cats. So there'd be a lot of emotion invested in that as Poogan's home. And clearly in the case of Zoe, she was distraught after the death of her sister. Whether that was, I won't get into all the different things that it could be because I'm not really qualified to discuss, Zoe's state of mind, other than clearly this was a traumatic experience to have her lifelong housemate, companion, and family member die. So I think that it makes plenty of sense. And especially once somebody starts changing the house around, that's particularly the trigger that I like the most. That she could be at peace, more or less, as long as it was still the house that she had lived in. But as soon as somebody spends a couple of years remodeling the place and turning it into a commercial venture, maybe for her it stops feeling like home, or maybe for her it becomes more important that she find the other parts of it that made it home.
One of the things I really like about this is that it also doesn't have any of like the pop culture trappings or projections of like, oh, it's evil or malevolent or like any of that. Do you remember the one that we did from Wilmington where none of the history aligned with the story?
Yes.
This is the opposite of that.
Yeah,
like in every way, this is the opposite of that story, because that had the trappings of like, oh, it's so evil. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
And it was just like, that was it. It was made to sell ghost tours.
Yeah.
But I will play Poogan's advocate here. What if the person ghost is really Elizabeth and the picture just got misidentified? And that's why it can't rest, because people keep calling Elizabeth Zoe.
It's not that she's got unfinished business, just that she's mad that everybody got the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I like that a lot. That'd be really funny.
I'm not Zoe.
That'd be really funny in a book.
So, Michael, I think speaking of your book, I think that Poogan's Advocate might be not too far off a good title. I like the idea of you sticking up for that guy. So this story reminds me this is not my joke. It's a bit that I heard, but it reminded me of this, and the idea that the restaurant could be sitting there saying, as people are like, oh, I think I felt something, like, oh, that's Poogan. You just missed him. Oh, he just ran around the corner. Like this this whole like, he's not dead. He's just, you got to be faster to see him. You know what I mean? So they're just playing this up the whole time of where'd the dog go? Oh, he's back in the kitchen. If you go around the corner, you'll see it,
I wonder if somewhere there's a ghostly health inspector that's going to eventually wander in and be really upset about all this.
This place is terrible. That's why all these kitchens where they're like, and then a plate flew off the rack. It's really just the ghostly health inspector. This won't do.
Yes, totally. I just I feel so bad for Poogan, but I'm glad that Poogan had a place that wanted to welcome him.
No, they
loved
loved
his
him. They
origin.
named the restaurant. Like their whole thing. He became the house dog.
Yeah.
After the restaurant opened, but most of the accounts say that he was a neighborhood stray.
Yeah, and that happens. There are neighborhood cats and neighborhood dogs all over suburbia.
It was a different time, Michael. It was a different time. There was many strays in South Charleston. I have no idea. I'm making all of this up. I have no idea what the number of stray dogs was in the early 70s.
No idea.
But if Oliver and Company has told me anything, it's that they not only were plentiful, but musical as well.
Right, yes. It actually vaguely makes me think of a movie I just learned exists that I'm really desperate to watch now called Shadow of the Cat. And apparently it is about a woman who is murdered by her gold digging brother or something. And her cat goes on a revenge spree. And I love this as an idea. It would be a lot of fun for, undead Poogan to be looking for the people who did this to him. But instead, I prefer the story that ghostly Poogan is just happy to still be home.
There you go. So, yeah, that's it. That's Poogan's Porch. Sorry, I didn't think it was real based on the silly name. They had alliteration and just the name Poogan I had never heard. And I was like, this isn't real. They're just trying to get me to say this. Well, now I've said it a bunch.
Well, I'm going to make sure that we link to Poogan's Porch in the show notes so that people can go see this place for themselves.
It's apparently a place celebrities go when they come into Charleston. It's like one of those you have to go kind of places.
Oh, well, then it might be out of my price range if I'm ever in Charleston. I don't know. We'll see.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. This was a lot of fun.
You've been listening to Arcane Carolinas. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. For more episodes, behind the scenes information, and links to our social media, check out www.arcanecarolinas.com, where you can also buy the Arcane Carolinas book.
And if you like award-winning horror and science fiction, check out my books at michaelgwilliamsbooks.com or visit my publisher, Falstaff Books, at falstaffbooks.com. And if you have story suggestions, comments, or questions, email us at arcanecarolinas@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.
Actually, no, cut all of that. None of
that's going to make it in. It was funny, but none of that's going to make it in.
That's not even Patreon's.
I'm under duress right now, everyone.
However, the part where we talk about cutting everything, that is going to make it in as the stinger, most likely.
There you go. There you go. See? And you can wonder forever, what did Charlie say that he shouldn't have said? I assure you it's nothing that you wouldn't have heard me say at a live event. It's nothing that bad.